We're here today to record for the Melting Pot series, a project that explains where people in Jacksonville come from. And I'm here, I welcome you, Aduibaje, did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you have.
Aduibaje Davis,
yes.
To our series, and we want to know your story.
Okay.
And we want to know what brought you here to not only the United States, but Jacksonville, Florida. And I'd like to start by learning a little bit about your country of origin, and that's Ghana.
Yes.
So if you will tell us about that, when you were born, where you were born in Ghana, and about your family and growing up in Ghana.
Okay. Well, I was born in northern part of Ghana with a small village called Gambaga to a mother of 10 children. My father was a magistrate. My mother was a home mother. She had 10 of us. I was the 7th child. With his education, my father made sure we were all educated. I was born in a society at that time or those days where girls weren't educated. Some families chose not to educate their kids at all because the boys were used at the farm work and girls were groomed and raised to be wives and mothers in the home. Fortunately for me, my father's education played a big role. So all of us were educated. We had at least even the minimum education. My father made sure we had those.
Where did you get that education?
In Ghana.
A public school or a private?
It was a public school. And my father being a magistrate, we traveled a few times, so I didn't start and finish at the same city. We traveled at different cities, and then, but most of my education was in the northern part of Ghana.
So when you say your father was a magistrate, did he work, he was either a judge or a lawyer? What was it called? Judge. A judge.
Yeah.
And I guess an attorney by trade as well.
Yes.
And did he work for the government, I assume, certainly, as a judge?
Yes.
So tell a little bit about, so you moved around a bit and your family made their living through the government paying your father as a judge.
Yes.
And you said there were 10 children in your family?
Yes.
Tell a little bit about growing up and what it was like. And did you share bedrooms? I'm going to assume that 10 children one does. What were your meals like? Okay. What was your playtime like? Okay. How much schooling?
Okay, well, I mentioned 10 children were from my mother. I have other siblings. So my father had more than 10 children. And so we had plenty to play with. We hardly had friends coming in from outdoors. Schooling was very intense. We walked to school pretty much every day.
Was it a long way?
Even take a mile or half a mile, 3/4 of a mile sometimes. You walk to school every day. You come home for lunch. You eat at home, and then you go back to school, and then school finished, you come back home. So it's at least 3 or 4 times walking every day. Most of the time you will have, some of us were privileged to have sandals or flip-flops, what is called beach sandals here. But a lot of times shoes wasn't part of it. You wear uniforms. We make our own starch as the girls. You take cassava.
You're making your own starch?
Yes.
For your uniforms?
For our uniforms. Here it's called yukon. In Ghana it's called cassava. You take the root, you peel it, grind it, strain it, and boil it to make your starch. Wash our uniforms by hand. Well, I wash clothes by my hands all my life. I hardly ever wore pants or shorts in my family home because girls were girls, supposed to be girls, and boys wore shorts and pants. So we were always in our native clothes, skirts or dresses as girls. And uniforms were, we starch them, you iron them every weekend after church. And then, you look really nice on Monday mornings through through Friday going to school, which was part of the things we did over the weekend. Studying, we studied together under the moonlight or a lantern. Our parents will have a lantern for the boys, have a lantern for the girls, or more sometimes.
So you didn't have electricity in your
We
home?
didn't have electricity. I didn't grow up with electricity. I did not grow up with TV, televisions, and all of those.
What about plumbing? Did you have running water in your home and
In my home,
toilets that flushed and no?
at my family home that my father built that has 13 bedrooms, there was no plumbing.
13 bedrooms?
Yes, my father's house have 13 bedrooms. There's no plumbing, there's no flushing, there's no water running. There was a well, there is a well still in the house right now that we get water from. We go to the public pipe to get water. The girls will go for water, the boys will go for firewood. Every morning we walk to go get water for our moms before we leave for school. So you can take a bath before you go to school. We took bucket baths, which my mom will have a big pot of water warmed up, and then you have a small cold water in the bucket. You scoop some of the hot water, mix it up, and then you go take a bath. You know, we bathe together, we sleep together, mostly in our mom's room, which is huge. She can have 3, 4, 8 children in the same room, you know, with mom pretty much until you grow to a certain age that you can have your own room or share with your brother. The boys sleep together and the girls will sleep in a different room. And then we would the girls help mothers cook, and then the boys do the male choices, like sweeping outside with the broom and, you know, helping whatever daddy needs to be done. But as I grew up to be, for him to be a magistrate, he had a bungalow. He was, you know, we lived in a bungalow, so we had 2 houses. The house he had was there before he became a magistrate. So there was a bungalow with several bedrooms. As a child, I don't remember, I just knew it was huge. He had a gardener, he had a cook, and there was a driver. So had a car that he never drove, that the driver took us anywhere or took him wherever he's traveling, since he was more so of a district magistrate. So he traveled to the small villages coming home.
So you mentioned that there were other children from another family.
Yes.
Was this from a previous relationship or wife, or was it? Did the men in Guano? Did your religion suggest more than one spouse? Which was it?
It's both. I don't know if it's based on religion, but it's a polygamy country.
That's
blowing up.
Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So he was entitled to more than one wife. So he had a wife before my mother. So I have brothers and sisters, and he had a wife after my mother. So
did you socialize? I know you did with the children. You were
Yes.
with the children from the other marriage, but did you spend time with his other wife as well,
We
and
did.
your mother as well?
Yes, we did. This is the richest part of what I would say growing up as a child. We were very, very loved. We were very nourished. There was always an adult in the home. The other wives, all the wives were in the same home with my mother and my father. So there was always plenty of food to eat, other brothers and sisters to play with and argue with and fight with, all the things children do. We were loved by all parents. As a child, I really didn't know the difference, that there was a rival here, a stepmother there, or somebody here. I just knew there was a mom in the house all the time. There was plenty to eat, questions answered. If I ran home and said, I scraped my knee, there was always a mother or somebody adult to take care of that bruise for me. And I grew up very loved and rich, and we adore that now that we're elders. But even though it's hard to understand that 2, 3 wives in the same home, I don't know.
How many wives did he have? Did your father have?
Okay, on and off, he had 6 wives.
Okay.
Yes.
And what about religion? Did you have a religion, and did you worship somewhere?
Yes, growing up, we were Presbyterian in the small village. Mm-hmm. When we moved to another city called Tamale, that was in Gambaga, I was born and raised in Gambaga, a small city in Ghana. Moving to a city like Tamale, which was bigger, we all went to Catholic school. My father put us all in Catholic school, and that's how we all finished school. I'm still Catholic. I worship as a Catholic religion. A lot of classes taken to be Catholic. So yes, we did both.
So how many children were there all together? Do you know?
I do. We were 18. 18 lived.
18 lived. Okay,
Yes.
from the 6 wives.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
18.
Yes.
So, and do you know where most of them are now?
We all communicate. We all together.
Yes.
We are still as brothers and sisters. We've lost a few. We were 8. I had 9 brothers and 8 sisters. So we were 9 girls and 9 boys growing up. And I've lost a few brothers and sisters, but the rest of us communicate. I travel to Ghana very often. I've taken my children to Ghana, so they know all their uncles and their aunties and their cousins. And with the world we live now, they have their own Facebook page where the grandchildren and the great-grands, have their thing going on. Yes.
Tell me about growing up and a decision to eventually leave Ghana. Excuse me. We have our Ghana State Park here in Ghana. And tell me, too, what led up to that, because I'm not sure when you left. And so if you'll tell that part of your story.
Yes. As I mentioned, after school, I went down south to live with one of my sisters who was a flight attendant. And at that point, I did a little bit of education. I moved back to northern Ghana in Tamale, not at the village, but I was close to my parents enough, like 100 miles away from my parents, which I visited every 6 weeks to make sure about their supplies and needs. It was meant. And whilst I was living in Tamale, that's how I met my husband, who was a Peace Corp volunteer from the U.S. I born and raised here in Jacksonville, but went to San Diego State University, went to the Marine Corps, and joined the Peace Corps after all of that. I think after he came back from Vietnam War, he joined the Peace Corps, and that's what brought him to Ghana, to a city called Tamale, where I was living. And that's how I met him.
How did you meet?
It was through food or money, because at those times, I don't know what Peace Corps does now. They used to get paid 3 different checks. They used to get paid US dollars. They used to get paid CFA, and they used to get paid Ghanaian cedis. We spend cedis in Ghana, and all the 3 neighboring countries to Ghana spends French money. There's French-speaking countries, and they spend CFA. So the way I met him was him. And his roommate, which were 2 volunteers at that time, ran out of cedis, but they were loaded with dollars and CFA. They didn't have a way of spending or getting meals. And somebody recommended that they should talk to me, which was a lady friend.
What were you doing at the time?
At that time, I was a beautician.
Okay.
And so I met with them, and they have CFA. Since I used to travel those days, I took the CFA and I gave them CDs. And then after that, he came back, and then he came back, and then he came back.
And you ended up, how long did you know him when you married? Or decided?
It took a while because I didn't make him welcome right away. Actually, I don't know how to put it, because I didn't like him. He was a little pushy and demanding, and I made him understand that I wasn't getting married. I told him, if I was getting married, you would not come here from America to meet me. But it took some time, give and take maybe 4-5 months, and then we went out for the first date. And after that, there were several other dates. And then I, made him understand where I come from.
Did the 2 of you go alone, or did you have an adult with you? It sounds like you were pretty independent by this time.
I was going by myself.
Yes,
I was living by myself, and I dated him for some time before I decided to introduce him to my family, which is the traditional part. You can't just walk in the house or knock on the door of your family and say, hey, this is my boyfriend. We don't do that. Traditionally, his family, the eldest people from his side of the family, 2, 3, 4, however number he has, will have to go and meet the most elders of my family, including my mother and my father. Since he was a Peace Corp volunteer, he didn't have that. Fortunately for him, there was a couple who worked at USAID in Tamale at that time, so who took him in as his son to begin with. So he, with my tradition, he asked if they could go on his behalf of his family. And so this was the couple that went with him to meet my family to ask my hand for marriage, for him to marry me.
Now tell me your husband's name.
His name is Joseph Davis Jr.
So Joseph showed great respect for your Ghana traditions.
Definitely.
And plus, clearly, you wanted to uphold your
Yes.
traditions.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And showed great respect for you.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for that story. That's such an interesting story. So you and Joseph would marry how and when? At what point?
We had to do the traditional marriage first after he was introduced. One of the things that stands up in our tradition is not just going to meet my family, because there is a lot of requirement. It's we use something like traditionally knocking on the door to go especially introduce yourself or your family coming to us for a hand in marriage is huge in my culture. And so certain things are required, like cola nuts is one of those. It's like the sign of knocking on the door. You present or you come with cola nuts. So
COLA, cola nuts?
cola nuts, which is used for, it's like a welcoming or I'm coming in to say hello. And so with that said, I informed my parents this was coming, this was going to happen. And so my family was prepared. And when Joseph and Mr. Brown and the rest of the people came with some of our traditional culture dowry requirements was met. They arrived with the guinea fowls and the chickens and the cola nuts and all of that. And money, part of it is 4 cows, which they couldn't load up 4 cows in the truck. But you take enough money to buy the cows. But that wasn't up until then. They were welcomed by my family. Everybody sat in my father's room. He had all my aunties, my uncles, my, elders of my family in the same room. And everybody in the room, after Mr. Brown made his presentation, their reason for visiting, for being here today. After he made his presentation, my father had to ask, and he did ask everybody in the room that are my family members, starting from my mother, to say, this is the young man, Aduibaje, your daughter has brought to marry her. Do you accept? How do you feel about that? My aunties, my mother, my uncles, my relatives, everybody in the room has to give their inputs. If you say yes or no, before it goes on, the tradition goes on. And after the presentation, what actually happened was Mr. Brown and Joseph and his family that came were taken out of the room. And they were given water and lunch to have a meal whilst this went on in the room with my father. So this is the part the other family that just arrived didn't see and they didn't know. Until all that is unsaid, then they were brought back in the room, and then my father will make his announcement and say, this is what the conclusion, this is what we came up with, this is our decision.
Now, how many years ago was that? What year did that take place?
That was
roughly
2000, what was it, 1983.
1980.
April 9th.
So how many marriages do you think are still forged that way in Ghana? Do you think most marriages still occur that way, or are women, do they make the decisions on their own now without consulting their families? What do you think?
I think most marriages is still carried the same way. Traditionally
Yes.
has to happen. You get a traditional marriage, and then after that, you take the blessings from your family, and you can go out and do whatever. You can have a big wedding, you can have a registry wedding, whatever you choose to do after that. But the customary marriage is required.
So that was 1983.
Yes.
When did you and Joseph come to the United States, and more specifically the North Florida area, Jacksonville area?
We came back 1985. Yes, we came back 1985, around October.
Was it a difficult decision to come here, or what was your thinking in coming to the United States, you and Joseph? I mean, I realize this was his home.
Yeah.
So what was your thought process?
Personally, I didn't want to leave my family. I loved where I was, what I did. So it was kind of difficult decision for me to make and leave the U.S. He tried everything to convince me that to come. Before, he wanted us to live in Ghana because he didn't want to come back to the U.S. And then later on, he said, it would be nice if I get to meet his family, which I left my family, everything I dreamt of and built up. So for me to start my own family, I have to go with the decision I made to marry him. And after I married him. And at that time, we had our first daughter.
In Ghana?
In Ghana.
First, okay.
She was born in Ghana, so I came to the U.S. with him.
And what is her name?
Her name is Jenny Samantha Davis.
Oh, a little bit of an Americanized name there.
Yes.
So, did you name her for somebody, or you just liked the name?
Jenny I like the meaning of the name, and Samantha is my mother's name.
Oh,
yes.
So it does have deep meaning for you. Tell me, I don't know the meaning of the name Jenny. What is
Jenny is a gift.
a gift?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, well, lovely. So it did. So the name had a lot of meaning and tradition for you.
Yes.
So you came to the U.S. and you came immediately to the Jacksonville area then.
Well, I lived in England. I left Ghana before him. I have a sister in London, so I stayed with her first. He came and joined me, and then we came to D.C., stayed with a few other...
in Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C., with a few couple that was in Ghana. At the same time we were there, they were Peace Corp volunteers also, for a couple of weeks. And then we traveled to New Jersey to meet his mother, for me to be introduced to his mother. We stayed with her for a couple of weeks. We went to Baltimore.
And his mother was just visiting in New Jersey, or she lives there?
She lives in New Jersey.
There. Okay.
Yeah, so I was introduced to the mother where she lived in New Jersey. We went to Baltimore. His grandmother was living at that time. I was introduced to the grandmother. I think we spent a couple of nights, not a week. And then we came to Jacksonville where his father lived, his sisters, uncles, aunties, everybody lived here in Jacksonville, within the same area, Atlantic Beach.
And you've made your life here in Atlantic Beach since that time?
Yes, I have.
Oh, nice. You've been here a long time.
For some time.
Longer than many people who call themselves natives of the area.
That's true.
So let's talk about your life here. So by the time you come here, you have one child who's, how old is she?
She was 7 months old.
Jenny was 7 months old. And then do you have more children?
I have 2 more girls. So I have 3 girls. Yes.
And so you have 3 girls living here. Did they go to the public schools here or other schools here?
Well, they started, I don't know where to begin. All 3 of them went to Presbyterian preschool down the street, not too far from here in Atlantic Beach. Jenny started off at Atlantic Beach Elementary School. I took her out of there because she was with the gifted program, and that time she wasn't placed in the gifted program. So I took her to Mayport, and there was a lot going on at Mayport Elementary at that time. So what I did was I had Jenny at, she went to James Weldon Johnson. Mm-hmm. And so did Bernice.
Middle school, eventually.
That was middle school. Mm-hmm. Bernice and Vanessa went to Jacks Beach Elementary School after they left Presbyterian preschool, and they went to James Weldon Johnson. Jenny went to Douglas Anderson School of the Arts. for high school. Bernice went to Stanton High School. Vanessa went to what was it? By the time we got to Vanessa, I had lost their father. It was a little bit of going for a single
You
parent.
had lost their father?
I lost Joseph.
What,
yes.
Tell me about that, because when you came back, what did Joseph do immediately? And please tell me about losing Joseph.
Okay, Joseph worked with different companies. He worked. He was an architect by tradition. He went to school. By profession. He went to school for architect at San Diego State University. So he worked with a few firms. He did some private jobs himself. And so he was more so of self-employed. And then leading up to his sickness, he worked with a company that did, what was it? I can't remember exactly, but they did big flower pots down off of Phillips Highway.
Okay.
And then he was doing architect by himself, privately or personal business by himself. And then he became sick he got pancreatic cancer. And that didn't take long. From the time he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, he was given 6 months, or everything happened. It was a long process leading up to that before they could really diagnose him. It took a long time. And part of it is not knowing. We didn't know what he was going through. And he was given 6 months. He lived to 8 months after. But I lost him in September 2000.
Oh my goodness. And how old was he at the time?
He was 51.
51 years old.
Yes.
And let's talk about the girls, your daughters, what they're doing now. Did any of them stay in Jacksonville? Did they, and what they do?
With their education, when I lost them, my oldest Jenny was 15, going on to 16 or 16, I think. Vanessa, the youngest, was 10. With them, Jenny finished and she went to UNF, University of North Florida. She worked with Fidelity for some time. She left and went to Peace Corp in Senegal.
Oh.
She speaks French fluently. So for 2 years she was a Peace Corp following her father's footsteps. She wanted to do that. She came back, worked with American Cancer Society for a little bit.
Say that again for me?
American Cancer Society.
Oh, the American Cancer Society, right,
yes.
Okay.
And then she went back to school. She just graduated from Duke University with her master's degree. Bernice went to University of Central Florida, Orlando. She has her master's in accounting. As of now, she works with Bank of America. Vanessa went to University of South Florida. She double majored. She is a mother of 2 now. She's in between jobs. She was a teacher. But as of her second baby, she doesn't work right now.
So are any of your daughters here in the Jacksonville area?
Yes, Bernice is here with me. Vanessa is here also at Arlington, yes. And Jenny is at DC, Washington, DC right now.
And Jenny's the one who just got her
degree in Duke, yeah. She works.
And what was her degree?
She did international marketing and nutrition.
So you must be very proud of your daughters.
It's been a rough time coming up with a single mother, not knowing where I am, not a lot of education for myself. I'm not going to say I was spoiled, but I was by their father. So it was an eye-opener. A lot of things I didn't know, I had to know. I had to find out, and I had to do for 3 girls.
So you said you felt spoiled by Joseph. Well, tell me about how you have coped and about your work, because I know that you tell me you work, and I'd like to hear about that.
Well, when I first arrived, I didn't work. He didn't want me to work. He knew where I came from and who I was. Pretty much he was the only one I can say in the whole entire U.S. who know who I was. My father, one part I didn't mention, besides him being a magistrate, was the chief of our village, which he never stayed to become the chief. So that makes me a little princess. With that said, we were okay in Ghana. A little struggle here and there, but most definitely better than most families. And so me coming here, Joseph knew fitting in society in the 80s wasn't the easiest thing. I have a thick, heavy accent. I didn't know my way around. I couldn't do a whole lot of things. I rode a motorcycle in Ghana. I did not drive. So that alone was finding my way. So he did a lot for me and Jenny at that time. So I wasn't too open. Working was hard. He didn't want me to work. He said he'll be the sole provider. I made myself go to work. Interestingly, I applied for a job, several jobs, and my first job here was with McDonald's. And so I worked for a few years with McDonald's, and I left that. But now I work with Baptist Medical Center.
The Baptist Medical Center, okay.
At the beaches.
Okay.
The one at the beaches. And that is probably still at the line of food, and I'm one of the morning supervisors for food and nutrition with patient services. Yeah.
So you're the one that sees that people, all those patients are taken care of, and you deal with food and nutrition.
Yes, I do.
And how long have you been doing that work?
20 years now.
Oh.
Yes.
So, and do you enjoy your work?
I do. I love my work. I love being of service to others, especially, in line of people who cannot really do for themselves.
Did you have special schooling or training in order to do that work in nutrition?
Training. A lot of training took place for me to be able to do that in line system.
So you've been with Baptist Medical Center a very long time.
20 years, yes.
Well, and let's talk a little bit more about the customs that you have retained, and so let's talk about that. In other words, maybe your culture. Do you still prepare food that you were used to in your culture? Certainly, I take it from your beautiful apparel that you, at times at least, maintain the custom of dressing in the is that traditional attire for Ghana?
Yes, it is.
Beautiful.
Yeah. With that said, coming from Ghana, even Jenny was just a few months. She had Ghanaian outfits. My sister sew, my family sew. She had plenty of those. And so my children grew up wearing Ghanaian outfit. Every last one of them, their Easter clothes were Ghanaian outfit. Our Christmas clothes were Ghanaian outfit. As of now, any function, big event or festival that I go in, I dress more in Ghanaian or African per se, because I have other native outfits. I have Nigerian outfits and I have Senegalese outfits, But most of my closet is more Ghanaian than anything else that I'll have. Anything powerful or nice that I can present myself. So my children grew up wearing the tradition. So far as food is concerned, yes, I never left that alone. I used to improvise in the 80s and even in the 90s. It's hard to find anything. That is where I come from. Some of the first things I missed when I left my country wasn't just the dialects that I spoke several. It's just the food that, I was homesick for the food and the dialects in my family. So I still cook Ghanaian food all the time. Most people know me for that. Working in the line of food, I love to cook. And see, my husband used to say that. He used to say, oh, when are we going to have some Ghanaian food in here? And it's only been 2 weeks. So he loved the Ghanaian food. Fortunately for him living there, so I had to keep cooking. And I love to cook more than I eat. He used to say that. The children I used to I still cook Ghanaian food all the time. I do catering. I do some African catering. Per se.
Give me an example of a meal that would be Ghanaian.
That would be Ghanaian. Besides jollof rice, we have curry, goat, fried plantain, and we can have cabbage or collard greens to go with that. That is a meal. Most food of Ghanaian food that most people relate to will be fufu and groundnut soup.
Could you tell me what fufu is?
Fufu is made out of cassava or plantain. It's boiled and then pound with a pestle and a mortar to become a substance more so like a dumpling. That's the most relations I can give it. and then you cut a piece of it and dip it in soup, and then you swallow it.
And I interrupted you. You were telling me about another food name when I asked about fufu. You were saying another name that I'm so sorry.
Oh, that was this. I spoke about the jollof rice, and then the fufu was going to be next, and then we eat more food. Pretty much related to anything you can find around here. Now it's easier for me to, relate or find Ghanaian foods that I would like to cook.
And you mentioned very early on talking about your dowry and the visit at your home when you were young about the nut. Was it a kola nut?
It's a kola nut.
Can you tell me about that and how it's used, and are you able to find them here?
Yes. We can find them here in some of the African marketplaces, or some even Caribbean marketplaces. You can find them here. Kola nuts are grown in Ghana. Actually, we export them. We export cocoa. We export, a lot of things. In the northern part of Ghana that I grew up, we export rice and peanuts, a lot of those. But southern part of Ghana, where there's thick vegetation, we have kola nut tree plantations, and I'm not going to say, but I believe that's what is used to make Coca-Cola and Pepsi Cola. It's a very small fruit, pretty much about the size of a pecan, a raw pecan, greenish looking. Some of them tend to stay green, some tend to be brownish, and others tend to be kind of beige. So we call them white. They stack together, you peel them up, break a piece, and then you chew it. It has a very bitter taste, extremely bitter, but it has a lot of caffeine. It wakes you up for the rest of the day, so all you need is a small piece of kola nuts. And kola nuts is used in terms of welcoming, greetings, and peace. So in my culture, kola nut is used for a lot of things. Besides weddings, marriages, outdoorings, like a naming ceremony. When a baby is born, the first week, exactly 1 week after the baby is born, there is a naming ceremony where families and friends and neighbors gather up in hundreds and thousands sometimes to welcome and celebrate the new life into the family. And that's the day. If it's a boy, the boy is circumcised and the hair is shaved and then named. The family, the oldest person, male in the family, will hold the child and then name the baby the name that the parents want the baby to be called for the rest of their life. So we have a big naming ceremony, a lot of music, food, dancing, and celebration for the naming ceremony.
Is that just for boys? Because that's when the circumcision.
Children.
All children have a naming ceremony.
Naming ceremony. All of us had naming ceremony.
And they're infants at the time, pretty much.
1 week.
One week?
A week after you're born, your parents give you the naming ceremony. And that still happens in the village that I was born and raised.
Tell me the most American part of our culture that or something very American you've embraced within this culture. It sounds like a lot. It sounds like, I think you drive now, don't you?
I do.
You drive.
I do.
I mean, in Jacksonville, that's so spread out, there's some real necessity to that sometimes. But what else about the foods and the television shows and the lifestyle and the restaurants, and what do you embrace a lot of and American clothes? I know you wear
I do.
a goodly amount.
Yes.
So what do you embrace the most of all Americana?
American.
It sounds like a lot.
It's the openness. There's a lot of transparency in Americans. There's a communication, a lot of good communication in American, I would say. The most I embrace is the freedom of going and coming, doing what you wish, what you want to do, what you decide to do. Whether it's in your home, in the society, in the neighborhood, there's a lot of freedom. It's opened. Where I come from, I had freedom, but there wasn't that many choices. In America, there is plenty of choices and a lot of doors open for you to walk in, decide whatever you want to do. I embrace that most.
are you an American citizen? I take it you are. You've been here so long.
Yes,
so when did you receive your American citizenship? Do you remember that? The circumstances of that?
Yes. For the longest time, I wanted to maintain my Ghanaian citizenship, which I did until Joseph got sick. And then that was like an eye-opener for me. Either take my children and go back to my country, or I stay here, or I make myself available to have the best of both countries, which I did. And that's when I applied for my citizenship. I received it right after he passed. My papers were approved, and he was able to sign some of them. He passed away in September. In December, I was sworn in as a citizen.
So a very bittersweet moment, I'm sure.
Yes, it was a decision I made that I should, wherever I choose to live after he's gone, he's the reason I was here. But if he's not going to be here, for the children's sake, I chose to have both.
And your oldest daughter, how did that work for her? Did she get her citizenship?
Born as to an American father, she's automatically an American, wherever country she was born into. Yes.
And let's talk about it. So you had your American citizenship. Do you remember much about the ceremony at all, or is it a blur?
I do remember. There wasn't much to be celebrated. I had it. I know other citizenship is different, but when I had mine, it was at the office of the immigration. It was about 25, 30 of us. We sat down, there was a prayer, and then the service happened, and then we were all given our certificates. So I do remember that. It's a big moment in my life. It's something I will not forget.
Have either you or your daughters talked about moving back to Ghana permanently, or do you think the United States and this Atlantic Beach area, greater Jacksonville or Duval County will remain your home?
I've thought about everything. We've talked about it. I'm very close with my daughters. We're more like sisters. We share a lot together. We've talked about it. I've made home, here in both. So I haven't really gotten to the point where, it's finally going to be for me. But so far as, my life concerned, I visit both places. I live here more than I go to Ghana. I go to Ghana to visit, but I come back and I live here.
How do you feel about the Jacksonville area? I mean, when you stop to think about this place that you call your home, what are your feelings? I mean, you've talked about the freedom you feel in this country and the opportunities are so diverse, but do you have any feelings about this area, a kinship with it, a warmth with it? Do you have families outside your family here, like a work family or a church family?
Yeah.
And how does that touch you in your hours of downtime when you stop to think about it, or does it?
It does. I love Jacksonville. My husband and I were quite involved with a few or some things that were taking part in Jacksonville. And one example was the World of Nations celebration put together by the city of Jacksonville.
World of Nations.
World of Nations celebrations. We got involved because our middle daughter, Bernice, the first time people sat at a round table to come up with the idea and brainstorm about what they should do for culture and diversity in the Jacksonville area. The idea was to find out from 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds, which are kindergartners and first graders, their mindset, what they're thinking of. And there was a competition of artwork. Our middle daughter, Bernice, she won the 3rd place in Duval County. Not just her school, but our neighborhood, Duval County. That opened a lot of doors and things for me to learn more about Jacksonville. So the award ceremony was the first day of Jacksonville. Parents were to meet at Metropolitan Park to receive the awards for your children. and we got involved with World of Nations. That opened me up to, as you mentioned earlier, culture family. And I've been involved since the past 26 years. Joseph and I have been, and I never stopped representing Ghana. Every year I participate in that. So it's a whole diverse, different kind of family that I'm involved with, including the city of Jacksonville, which I'm very happy and proud of that. And I look forward to that every year. It's one of the hardest things to do, is slogan of Peace Corp, the hardest job to have, but you love doing it. So that opens me up. I love that part of Jacksonville. I like the fact that we got involved with another, through Well of Nation, we got involved with a sister city program where we, in terms of Joseph and 6 other people that came up with the idea of twinning Jacksonville with any and one of the African countries, because Sister City has several twins around the world, but Africa wasn't one of them. So we did the groundwork and had South Africa to twin with Jacksonville. Groundwork meaning coming up with ideas, brainstorming, finding out our reasons, getting with South Africa, the sources, the people to talk to, get to the mayor, get the 2 mayors to agree, sign up, or just meet. And we were able to bring the mayor at that time, I don't remember the year, to come and visit Jacksonville, meet with the city of, the mayor of Jacksonville. Papers were signed, agreements were made, and then they twinned.
Do you remember who the mayor of Jacksonville was at the time? It's okay.
I'm not sure if it was John Delaney or I believe it was John Delaney or Mayor Austin.
So early. This happened.
Was early. Yes. I can't remember, but I know they twin 2 days before my husband passed away.
Oh my.
Yes, so that was one of the awards. He received an award for being part of the best participant. He was always like this gentle giant to me. He does a lot, but he's never in front of the camera or the scene or the public. He does it from behind the scenes. So on his deathbed, the award plaque was presented to him. A lady brought it to us after the program, probably about 9 p.m. He had the plaque, and 2 days later, he passed away. So that was one good, happy thing. So I look at Jacksonville, as you mentioned earlier, even if it's not a home, but a great second home. I love it here. I'm happy what it's done for me with my children. I enjoy meeting people like you. Most people are very good. My neighborhood is great. I can trade Atlantic Beach for anywhere else and do workout. We are simple. We are just family is enough to move around and obtain anything you want and go any place you wish to go.
Tell me about your church family here. Are you very active with them, or do you still have an active church family here? You did it one time.
I did, yes. Yeah. At one time, I spent a lot of time in church when the children were younger, when Joseph was alive. Being Catholics, our church is very close to the house. When I say very close, probably a mile and a half from the home, St. John's Catholic Church. I was very involved to bringing up the children. They were serving the altar service, and they played every role. They have to take all the CCD classes and graduate and everything. So I had a lot of friends, other mothers. We get along. We did prayers. We did the rosary. I'm not as involved as I used to be, but I would say I've been, pretty much inside out of the Catholic Church for many years.
Are there any other thoughts you want to leave us with about your time here and your life in Jacksonville, your life in Ghana? Anything else you'd like to add to this interview?
Not much, but still I will have to say thanks to Jacksonville and both Ghana. My background played a big role. I am happy with the open arms that I received in Jacksonville with the family. Joseph family are all here. I was embraced. I was taught a lot. I was led a lot of places that I didn't know, whether it's by words or by driving me there or taking me there to teach me all the things I needed to know. I'm very happy about that. I was very happy to meet and marry the young man that I love, Joseph. One of the things and the powers he gave me was he had lived in my country. He was born and raised here. But he would like me to raise our daughters as we raise our children in Ghana. And that's what I did. Our children are very mannerable. I'm a very proud mother. I'll just ended up with that. I am a very proud mother.
I do have one more question.
Yes.
Are there many people in Jacksonville that you know about from Ghana?
That's true. I missed out on that part. I think the question came earlier. Yes, we had a Ghanaian association. We were called the Ghana Association. They were very involved with us with the Weather Nations initially in the beginning when we introduced that to the association. We have our Independence Day parties. We have our end of the year parties. We have monthly meetings. So there is quite a bit of Ghanaians in Jacksonville. A lot in the Navy.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
The Navy.
Yes.
Well, it has been a delight to get to meet you. It's been such a pleasure and to hear your story. I'm going to let you say your name one more time for the camera because it's such a beautiful name and I want it said the right way.
Okay, my name is actually Aduibaje. That's the Ghanaian name my parents gave me. And the meaning is my generation would never end.
And I do want to add, occasionally for people watching this, you have used the name the name Martha occasionally, maybe through your work.
Yes.
Yes. So your full name is
Martha Aduibaje Davis.
And Aduibaje, I have loved meeting you. It has been a joy and a pleasure to hear your story. Thank you for being part of this series, The Melting Pot.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.